I'd rather be safe. Thank you. Awesome. All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Alton. Greetings to all of you who are also watching virtually. Make sure everybody says hello. Hi, everybody. Okay. I apologize. I am wearing a mask today. I know that muffles my voice a little, but I tried to reposition this so it captures my voice as clearly as possible. I have a head cold, and I don't want to, spread the germs because it's not fun. I'm Robin Berkeley. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the president of the congregation, and I also serve as a worship associate. The First Unitarian Church of Alton is a small congregation in Alton, Illinois, spiritually led by the Reverend Krista Taves. I'm so glad that you are here, whether in the sanctuary or online. We welcome everyone to this home of comfort, spirit, justice, and hope. We are Unitarian Universalists. We open our service with a prelude by our accompanist, Joy. Thank you, Joy. Not only is that one of my favorite songs, but it kind of aligns nicely with today's message about what we believe and why we believe it. Okay. An important ritual in the Unitarian Universalist faith is the lighting of our chalice. Unitarian Universalists have many different interpretations of the flaming chalice, including the light of reason, the warmth of community, and the flame of hope. Join me in celebrating all of these reasons and more. If you're watching elsewhere and have a chalice or a candle available to you, please light it now as we all join in saying the unison words projected on the screen. We hallow this time together by kindling the lamp of our heritage. Our opening prayer today is called We Gather in Reverence, which is number 439 in the Gray Hymnal, written by Sophia Lyon-Faz. We gather in reverence before the wonder of life, the wonder of this moment, the wonder of being together, so close yet so apart, each hidden in our own secret chamber, each listening, each trying to speak, yet not fully understanding, none fully understood. We gather in reverence before all tangible, intangible things that eyes see not, nor ears can detect, that hands can never touch, that space cannot hold, and time cannot measure. Our first hymn is number 23, Bring Many Names. We're going to sing the first 4 verses, and it's in the Gray Hymnal, number 23. Please rise. Bring many names. Please be seated. So today's message resonates with the fourth principle, the fourth UU principle, the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. And today we're going to focus on the variety of sources that have influenced the UU faith in a very broad sense. Mostly I'm talking about my own experience with it. And along with this may come some trauma for people because we recognize that many of us came to this faith because we walked away from others that were not working for us in many ways. So I'm trying to reconcile my own beliefs and struggles with my religious history and trying to remain with an open heart to reconcile all that it means to be a Unitarian Universalist and what we believe and why. So I'll talk about that inspiration in a few minutes. So we're going to have the kids go to RE today with Miss Carol. So what are you all excited about in terms of Christmas? What are you looking for from Santa? What do you think? Emily or Patty? Hey? No? Good? Or? Peace. Amen, sister. Peace. Peace, peace, peace. All right. Well, let's get ready to sing our kids out. Ready? As you journey, as you journey, as you journey, may you know, love and hope go with you, love and hope go with you, learn and grow, learn and grow. Bye, everybody. Okay. As part of our weekly worship service, we take time for the expressions of joys, concerns, and sorrows. In front of us is a bowl filled with water and stones available to place in the bowl representing your joys and concerns. We have stones here and stones in the back. Please start on my right, proceed to the left. Take a moment to stop and reflect and send your energy out to the universe and place your stone or stones in the water. If you're home, feel free to place a stone in a bowl of water or offer your joys and sorrows to the universe. Please begin. Just take a deep breath, close our eyes for a moment, ground ourselves to be present here today. A lot of craziness as the holiday season is finally upon us in a deep way, and probably feel like we've got a lot to do, not enough time. Let's stop and stay grounded here for a few moments to remember it's all good. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be. Okay. Our next hymn is number 1058 in the Teal hymnal, Be Ours a Religion. So our reading today is Beyond Every Door by Molly Hoosh Gordon, and it was found on the UUA website. Who here knows the book, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe? Let's talk a little bit about how Lucy Pevensey discovers Narnia. Lucy looks for the perfect place to hide and opens up the door to a big wardrobe. She goes through the door and into the back of the wardrobe, and suddenly she's in a whole other world. A magical world with witches and fauns and talking beavers. Wouldn't it be cool if there was a magical world beyond every door? When Lucy opened the door to Narnia, it didn't look like anything special. It was just a boring door to a wardrobe full of clothes and coats. But across its threshold was magic. Lucy already had a foot in Narnia before she quite realized what was happening. Many of the thresholds in our lives are like this. We don't know that we're crossing into another world until we're already halfway there. The door of a church takes us down a pathway of growth we might never have expected. The door of the doctor's office suddenly opens out into life with a hard diagnosis. A restaurant door opens onto a first date and echoes forward into a relationship of a lifetime. A beloved person's door closes behind you and sends you out into the world heartbroken. The door to a library or a gym or a dance studio introduces you to a life's passion you might not have otherwise discovered. We cross these thresholds every day of our lives, for good and for ill, in joy, in sorrow, and in bittersweet truth. Truly, even our own front door is a great threshold, no matter how familiar the worlds within and without may be, given our lives' reality of constant change. Every day we open the same old door again, only to step out into a world that is new since the day before. In this way, there is a new world behind every door, awaiting our discovery if we will only encounter it as such. So as I said, today's message is going to talk a little bit about how I've been grappling with my religious history and my UU sources and and coming to grips with what I understand and what I believe, which is always ever evolving, which would be a surprise if I said I was not a UU. So, but since I am, that shouldn't surprise you at all. And I think, as many of you know, and as many of you here probably will agree, I didn't grow up in the UU faith. Very few people have, and bless you if you were lucky enough to do so. Um, but I will say that, for me, this was not a place where I had expected to be. I grew up Catholic. I grew up, and that was, pretty much my parents saying, "You will go to church, and you're going to go to Catholic church," and we had no choice in the matter. Uh, and if we decided that we didn't want to go to a UU church, as would happen with my brother, Catholic church rather, as it happened with my brother, my parents are like, "Yep, you got to go to church somewhere." I'm like, well, what if I don't believe? Do I really need to go to church? Yes, you do. And so I have these horrible memories of being required to go to church even before I would go to work at the bakery, the local bakery where I had to start at 8 a.m. in the morning on a Sunday morning. And mom would be like, "You got to go to church. You got to go to church." So I'd go to the 7 o'clock mass. And I called it the express mass, because we'd go in, the guy would mumble through the prayers as quickly as possible, and we were in and out in 25 minutes, which is pretty impressive if you understand all the ritual in the Catholic faith. But it left me empty. It left me really feeling like, why? Why am I here? I'm not getting anything from this. It's a body, it's cheeks in the seat, but I got nothing from it. So I grappled with that. And then I went to, Catholic college. I went to Marquette University in Milwaukee. And not because it was Catholic. I just fell in love with the school because I really loved Milwaukee and I just loved the environment. I visited it in the dead of winter. And if I can love a place in the dead of winter, I know I'm in a pretty good place, right? And I still, to this day, still have such a huge affection for Marquette University today. A friend of mine, one of my best friends, is now works in the provost office there. I mean, it's a family thing. It's just a connection here local. It's just something about the Jesuit faith that really encourages you, it challenges you to push the boundaries. And that's really what Marquette did for me. I did become a Eucharistic minister, not because I wanted to, but my boyfriend was. And he's like, "Come on, do this with me." I'm like, okay. I hadn't really anticipated going to church at all once I got to Marquette, because I figured once I was 18, I was out of my parents' house. The heck with this, I'm not doing it. But he got me to do it. And what I found is the Sundays when we would have services was more about community and less about the religious lessons or the messages, and although some of those messages were helpful, but the resonance wasn't there for me in terms of the religious stuff. So fast forward, by the time I left Marquette and returned home, I tried to find that community in a church where I was living, and it just wasn't there for me. There was nothing there that was working for me. And so I just left. And in many ways, I attribute that to a good conversation with my brother, who I said he was trying to convince me to become a born again Christian like him, which was, no, that's not happening, because I don't buy into all that, right? But I respect that people do. And I said, if anything, I'm Catholic. He goes, "Well, do you believe in the infallibility of the Pope?" I'm like, "Oh, hell no." "Do you believe in this? Do you believe in that?" And I'm like, "No, no, no." He goes, "Then why do you consider yourself a Catholic?" I'm like, "That's a great, great question, and you're absolutely right." And he says, "If you don't believe in some of the major tenets of it, then that's not who you are." I'm like, "You're right." So I walked away. That's not what he wanted, but that's what ended up happening. He wanted me to become born again like him. And I'm like, yeah, that's not happening. So my family religious history, as I already said, my brother is a born again Christian. And although he would not tell you that he is that today, he has evolved himself. He's actually become, gasp, a little bit more UU. And I find that really heartening. I really do, because he said, I believed for so long that this was the way to be, until I saw the hypocrisy amongst so much of it. And he goes, and now I can't believe, with all the world's religions out there, that there's only one path. to the divine. There's only one path to God. I said, amen, brother. I'm with you. So we've had some really good conversations. But, I got to travel to Italy, to Israel when he was studying there. And we got to experience Israel and its beauty and its pain and sorrow and all that sort of stuff. So my brother was the first to leave the flock, if you will. He was the first one that challenged my parents and said, I don't believe this stuff. I don't want to. He goes, I ask questions. They tell me to just believe, and that doesn't work for me. And so he left and he became a born again Christian. My dad followed suit after that. My sister also left and she explored a few things. She ended up becoming a Latter-day Saint. So she's part of the LDS / Mormon faith. And still to this day, very much so. My mom is the only one that remains Catholic. I was agnostic and indifferent until, and I blame you. That's Lane that I just poked my finger at. But I pretty much was, agnostic until Lane encouraged me to come here, and I thank you for that. But more on that in a few minutes. So, of course, this otherness that I felt for a long period of time in my family. My mom wasn't thrilled my dad and my brother were born again Christians, or my sister was LDS, but at least they went to church. Wink, wink, poke, poke. So, these challenges came up time and time again, as a couple. When I was married when I got married to my ex-husband, we didn't get married in a church. And so that was like, what was it from the Sanford and Son? I'm coming, Elizabeth. I'm having the big one. That was what that was like for my family. But we did get married in the state capital of Madison, Wisconsin, which was beautiful. And gasp, the judge who did the service actually talked about God, which made my parents happy as clams. So well, he talked about God, so that was all right. I mean, they respected my views and my ex-husband's views, that wasn't meaningful for us. Although I will say we had actually had hoped to get married at the UU Church there in Madison, but unfortunately they had a concert that day. They couldn't accommodate us. Oh yeah, that's fine, no worries. But that's typical, right? So we didn't get married in a church. And then, of course, I have the first grandchild, and my poor grandmother became apoplectic when she found out we were not baptizing my daughter. So that didn't come out so well on that end. Again, they respected, but you heard it every once in a while. What if she dies tomorrow? Then she will be blessed, and we will miss her and love her. I mean, she's not, had that discussion, as you know. And then, of course, other things chipped away at, my connection with organized religion. I watched my good friends of mine who had problems conceiving, and they were told by the Catholic Church that they were sinners because they used in vitro fertilization, and I was appalled. And if nothing else, that was the last straw for me, because these were two people that couldn't be more loving, more wonderful, more devout Catholics. And the church was like, oh no, nope, you're doing that. I'm like, it makes no sense to me. And then lastly, of course, coming out as a lesbian, that was the biggest barrier for me, because I knew at 9 that I was different, and there was just no space for me to be different in that space. So fast forward, my brother-in-law, who yesterday we celebrated honored 4 years of his death, he had a huge impact on me and the kids, and he was a devout Buddhist. He practiced that, lived it, embodied it, and that was the first sort of connection with something spiritual that resonated for me. And so I started exploring that, and Buddhism, yogic practices as a spiritual practice, not just as something to do on the mat, right? And I found it to be really rewarding and very exciting to find a place where the spirituality really resonated with my brain and my head. I lived, luckily, knock wood, 20 minutes from Kripalu, which is the largest sort of residential yoga facility in the country, at least at the time. I don't know if it's not anymore, but at the time it was 20 minutes drive, and I could go and do some really deep work with them, and started to really kind of heal some of my pain from religious issues and religious concerns growing up. I mean, some of my most horrible traumas are from the nuns that I grew up with. When I think about my educational experiences, being humiliated in front of the entire class, it was just not a healthy place. And I still to this day, I don't have any love lost for one nun in particular who was just a horrible person to me. So, um, that was hard. And so it was lovely when I lived in New York because I could go there 20 minutes. I could get what I needed. I could go for a weekend. I could go for a day. I could do all sorts of things. And then I moved here and I'm like, I have nothing. And there really wasn't anything here that resonated for me. There wasn't a similar spiritual place. I tried going to Rockwood. Is that what it was called? Rockwood? That never resonated for me either, because it was still very controlling, Catholic focused. And it just didn't work for me. And then Lane's invitation. We got to know each other through the lesbian community. She invited me to come, and I went, well, I don't know. It took me, 3 years? Probably, I think. I think it was about 3 years to get me there. And then, and one time she asked me to come and speak to the church, and something came up. Somebody got sick, and I couldn't make it. But I finally said, all right, I'll come. It was 2010. It was the first service after the new year of 2010. Kleber was up here burning shit. I went, yep, this is where I want to be. Because what he did in that ritual, which we will do and when we have our service in January, it was amazing because it really resonated back to these sources that I loved in Buddhism. I'm like, oh yeah, that's what we do in Buddhism. Like we want to let go of the things that have hurt us in the past and move forward into the future. And it was like, dang, that burning bowl stuff is really cool. So I was hooked. And like within 3 weeks, I signed the books and the rest is history. And here I am, president, how many years later, and going, I blame you, Lane. And I'm just teasing you, but really. So what brings me to this? Why do I want to tell this story? This is kind of where, now that we've got the background, I have been really struggling of late to reconcile peace with that past. And instead of focusing on it with awful, bad, derision, don't want to talk about Christianity, it's bad, it's done nothing but harm. And in many respects, there's a lot of truth to that because most of the world's wars were waged around Christianity. We look at the issues of colonialism in Africa and here in the United States and the slave trade after spending time in Spain and seeing all this, right? It's all based in this Christian faith. And I just struggle with reconciling that. But I decided that I was going to try to push through that as part of dealing with other traumas in my life. And I'm not talking big T traumas. For me, they're small T traumas in comparison to other people's, but they had an impact on my life. So I was trying to make peace with some of that past negativity and trauma. And my good friend Kathy is much more sort of a faithful Christian than I am in that respect. And so we've had some really great conversations where I'm trying to wrestle with what I believe around those issues. And I made a decision, probably about 2 years ago. And I think hopefully you saw that reflected here in bringing in Claudia and in bringing in Annie Garesh, who was here for a while. Annie is a Catholic priestess, and Claudia is a Jewish priestess. And the goal here was to really help us to dig in, to understand our sources a little bit more, so that we could also make peace with that as a congregation, as you use. And I know there's a lot of pain and trauma around that for many people. So this came up for me a couple of weeks ago, like this deep, visceral, oof feeling. I went to see a play with my friend Joan. It's called The Christians. I don't know if any of you have heard about it. It was really powerful. And I think it's over now. It was the West End Players did it in St. Louis. And The Christians was a story about a minister and his journey. He was the head pastor of a mega church that had many, many thousands of followers, like the whole Willow Creek thing, which my brother was involved in for a long period of time. But this huge, with multiple services a day, multiple ministers, and just this sense of hardcore fundamentalist Christian beliefs. And then he had a revelation. And the story goes like this. He said that he went to a retreat or a conference, and one of the speakers was somebody who had been doing missionary work in some Latin American country. It was not named. It was just this obscure name. And he said, the missionary said to us, he was telling us a story about this young boy. He was a teenager, like maybe 14, 15 years old. And he had been in the store and outside of the store that had blown up because of a car bomb. He goes, and the kid ran into the store, blowing up, flames, things flying everywhere. He ran into the place to get his sister, who was like 7 years old, to hold on to her, to save her, to get her out. And he was aflame, but kept her safe. She survived and he died. And he's telling this story. And I'm listening to this. Now, mind you, when this play began, it actually is at, if anybody's ever gone to Opera Theater St. Louis, it's in a church, like the Union Church or something like that. So you walk in there, and it's very religious in focus and in the energy in there, even though the opera is amazing. But you walk in, and so the play began with this couple walking in and shaking hands with people in the audience, and I got the initial ick factor, like, oh, don't evangelize me with your smarmy, greasy smiles. I was just like, oh, I can't do this. And literally, I had to force myself to stay in my seat because my visceral reaction was so strong and so negative. I'm like, dang, I got to get out of here. But my friend Joan was really good. She's Jewish, and she's like, just hang in there. I'm like, all right, I'm going to breathe. I figured if she could do it, I can do it, right? So anyway, the play goes on, and he's talking about this story. And the guy, sort of does this aside. He goes, and so I'm listening to the story, and I'm feeling all of these horrible emotions, like this poor child is dead, and what pain it is. And then he kind of goes back to the scene, and the missionary says, and we lost that child. And the minister is like, yes, we lost that child. That child died. And he said, we didn't save him in time, so he's not in heaven. And the priest and the minister was like he's in this room with all these people going, amen, hallelujah. And he's like, that makes no sense to me. That doesn't make any sense to me. Just because he didn't accept Jesus as his Savior doesn't mean that he's not in heaven. He goes, look at what this kid did. He sacrificed his life to save his sister. Why isn't he in heaven too? And he spent months working on this, chewing on it, trying to figure it out. Now, the irony about, not irony, it's probably the wrong word, the challenge that sort of embedded in this whole story that was this play was, this is the day that he announced that they had just paid off the building. Like they had paid it off and everybody was happy. And he said, but I'm challenging you to have a deeper conversation with this. And he suddenly said, I'm not sure I believe that you have to believe to go to heaven. And that went boom, blow up. The assistant pastor challenges him. The assistant pastor leaves. The head of the church board challenges him. They said, well, we have faith in you, but, be careful being intolerant, blah, blah, blah. And they warned him. His wife, congregants don't believe him. They believe that if he had believed this, he should have told them right away rather than after the building got paid for. So there's a lot of cynicism, right? And we when I do consulting, I tell my clients, you have to be transparent, because if you're not transparent, people fill in the gaps with the most negative information possible. So, of course, needless to say, the last person that challenges him is his wife. And he holds true to his belief. He said, I believe according to the Bible studies, that we don't have to believe in order to be in heaven with God. And so that was a real struggle. And so as I'm watching this, I went from, ooh, visceral negative to, ooh, he's becoming a UU and he doesn't know it. And he really makes this wonderful argument for why and how even Hitler could be in heaven, right? And I'm like, you think, ooh. And, well, if you believe hell is here on earth, then why not, right? And that's hard for us, right? Even those of us that grew up with Catholic upbringing and stuff, we could feel it like, ooh, would Hitler really be in heaven? Maybe. I don't know. And so, anyway, I found it to be a really interesting story. And at the end of the day, it was his wife his church was falling apart. They had all left to go to the other assistant pastor's church. That was growing. His was failing and was going to close. His wife was ready to leave him, and he invited her. And he goes, just trust and to take the journey with him, and then hopes that it would. And she's like, no, I married a man of a certain faith and a certain belief system, and that's not who you are anymore. So his whole world fell on its head because of that. And I was reminded as I was watching this of all those pains of believing because I was a lesbian, believing because I just didn't buy into the Jesus story, that I was clearly going to hell, that I was clearly, that all that imagery still gives me the creeps, like devil terms and things like that. It just, like, that's the imagery that you get taught as a kid is bad and evil and all that sort of stuff. And I just went, wow. I did push myself to sit through it. And at the end of the play, there was no resolution for the guy. He was still going to lose his faith and lose everything that he had worked for. But I was like, it was profound. And I told the director that and the actors, I said, this was a really very strong reaction for me, and I appreciated the work, what you did. I said, because my visceral reaction was real, and it really, truly resonated with me. So how does this all apply to me in this journey and this idea, this search for truth and meaning, that fourth principle? I look around. I love Christmas. I love Christmas. Do I love the birth story and the manger and all that? Not really. That does not resonate for me. And not even the Santa Claus thing. Like, that's fun. But really, what resonates for me is the joy of Christmas and the wonder of Christmas and the love that's associated with Christmas. I love having people at my house with a big table and sharing stories and preparing a meal and just doing all that. It's the depth of possibility, the love that's out there and the connection that's there for Christmas. And so I look at Christmas lights and I look at it, green, boughs of green and poinsettias and you name it. And I just get all warm and fuzzy. And I love that. I love going to the Christmas lights over at the Mobot. So this is this is what I love. But how, the question I get from people is like, well, how can you love that secular Christmas but not love the Jesus story? I'm like, because the Jesus story sort of usurped, that, right? So I love the role of the UUs in the Christmas holiday. UU history is sort of rich with, Charles Dickens and how Charles Dickens sort of framed, he's a UU, or at least had UU values, framed what Christmas looks like, right? And how we think about it, and the whole Christmas tale that he has with Scrooge. Excuse me. Is really a part of that. And I love that Heather, who goes by Chaim now, by the way, Heather was had posted a few things on our UU Friends website about the role of the people. And, Currier and Ives, right? They have a racist history. And yet we still reconcile that with our image of what Christmas is. And so, our stories are not perfect, right? Christianity is rife with these sort of things, as is UU. We're not perfect a faith, but we're an evolving faith. We're a learning faith, and I appreciate that. So going back to my concepts of sort of Christmas and some of the holidays and some of the imagery that has an impact on me, I grew up believing that paganism and solstice and stuff like that was bad because it wasn't Christian. Um, and so even when I've talked to friends, even though I tried very hard to be very open-minded in my youth, when people would tell me that they were Wicca or pagan, I had a very strong negative reaction to that as well. And I remember one of my colleagues from a place that I worked in New York City. He was a Druid, and he was encouraging me to go to one of his services. He goes, "We go to the woods and we hold hands and we sing songs and we have our." And I'm like, "Oh, that sounds creepy. I'm not going to do that." Now, how many years later, I'm like, "Damn, I wish I had done that. I might have changed my journey a little bit." But I found that was my first sort of really strong reaction. And I'm like, I don't know what I believe, but I'm not sure I believe that. And that's not okay. But I've become more comfortable with that. And I have learned to embrace that. And I attribute that to my daughter. One time when Margaret was coming here and did RE, she was borrowing books on uh, the Greek gods or the Roman gods and their impact on society and stuff like that. And I remember Stephen Mead had given her the book and was like, "Here, read this." And so she was going off for a while on Roman gods and Greek gods and believing in this god and that god. And I said, "You know that they're not real." I said, "How can you believe that stuff? Like it's real, right?" And here I am, right? I'm at church and I'm supposed to be open to this stuff. And she's like, "Wah, wah, wah, wah." She looked at me and she, "Mom, have you looked at your meditation table? Who's that giant elephant there? And what about Buddha?" I said, "Well, Buddha was real." But she goes, "But Ganesh is not." I'm like, "Well, that's just a symbol." She goes, "Duh. That's what the Greek gods are to me." And I went, "Oh, wow. I'm a dope. I apologize. You're right." So I stepped in the steaming pile of dog poop and I cleaned off my shoes and said, "All right, I'm going to move forward with that." So I sort of owe her that. And now, as I've learned more about pagan faiths and earth-based faith traditions, Native American traditions, and things like that, I realize it's probably the pagan nature of Christmas that is what I love. And that's why I can be comfortable with Christmas and love Christmas, even if I don't buy into the Jesus story. And that's what keeps me connected, right? So, what I've worked on for myself is how do I overcome those negative learned reactions, those negative learned behaviors. So, I have done this when it came to paganism and earth based faiths and worked myself through that. And I'm now doing that same reconciliation with trying to understand the Christian roots and recognizing that there's wonderful, beautiful things in Christianity that even if I don't buy into that Jesus is God, I can buy into the love, the giving to others, those fundamental things that Jesus was a good role model for, and how he taught us how to treat people. And so when I see the hypocrisy of people screaming about immigrants when Jesus' word was, we should embrace those immigrants. We should care for those, the least of our brothers, we should care for them because that's when it needs to be done. That we cannot stand up and say that we are righteous and we are better than everybody else and that you don't have a place in this holy place just because of bad things we may have done yesterday, tomorrow, or in our past. That there is a place for all of us, in the divine. Because I believe if you believe in a heaven and a hell, I think hell is here on earth. There's many wonderful, wonderful things here on earth, but I think there's a lot of pain and suffering here, what our Buddhists will tell us about, that the pain and suffering is there. And we need to let go of it and to let it run through us and past us, right? And letting it, not knowing what's out there, the door, right? As it says in the reading, to walk through that door, whether you're going to Narnia or going to a new adventure, just explore it and recognize that sometimes those traumas, are in here to inform us about what works and what doesn't work for us. But I also firmly believe in to overcome trauma. Sometimes that kind of trauma, at least for me, I have to confront it head on, and I have to grapple with it, and I have to make sense of it. And I spend a lot of time in my therapy working on those things. The goal here is to overcome the negative and embrace the positive and the good messages that come from all of our sources, no matter what they are, that it enables us to truly grow and become better people, become closer to the divine, however we choose to define the divine. One of the things I really appreciated about Kleber was his use of the word God of many names. And you can call it whatever you want. If you don't like the word God, that's fine. That's good too. But he believed that there was some sort of divine, and I think he gave us space, or at least I felt like he gave me space to say what I believed or didn't believe, and even if it wasn't in alignment with mainstream Christianity. And I really appreciated it. So I think our search for truth and meaning is about reconciling that journey, being open and fluid, and recognizing that the beliefs that I have today were not the beliefs I had 5 years ago or 10 years ago or 20 years ago, that it's an open journey, that every opportunity to learn is another door that I need to walk through to get into who I am deeply and what I believe deeply and what my values are deeply. And no matter what, I know that I am in the right place, because being a UU has given me the tools and the place where I could explore that safely. And I can say, this works for me and it doesn't, but it's taught me tolerance for a different point of view that I may not have held or may have had a negative reaction to. So even going back to Christianity, the same thing. I had a negative visceral reaction, but I sat through that play and I made peace with it by the end and recognized that that's a trauma that I need to learn to work with and move forward with. So I encourage you all to just find your journey, whatever that is. It's all good, whatever it looks like. Enjoy, relax, and float on that boat to figure it all out. Amen. And we're going to end with one of my favorites. 1064 in the teal hymnal, the blue boat home, because we're all going home. That's what we're doing. Ready? All right, ready? Though below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains, far away from the ocean, feel the joy and sing. Thank you, my favorite. I needed to have that before the end of the year. Okay, so stewardship. Nathan, do you mind doing that? Thank you. Stewardship is both financial donations as well as volunteering your time, talent, and treasure. We continue to need support for worship, coffee hour, and ushering. If you can't write a check, please help our church survive and thrive by offering your time to help. Go ahead. Please give what you can because all of our gifts are needed for our church to prosper. You may mail your financial gift to the First UU Church, P.O. Box 494, Alton, Illinois, 62002. You can give electronically through the Givelify or PayPal links on the church's webpage. If you're willing to donate your time and talent, please contact a board member. Let us know what you would like to do to help. You could always use it. Give what you will and what you are able, for you are a generous, generous people. Thank you, everybody. Please join with our offering prayer. May this offering equip us to inspire love and to seek justice. Announcements. We had to cancel Fourth Saturday yesterday because Paula was sick. So we will probably reschedule it or just continue on into January. We'll have to figure that out when she's feeling better about how we want to handle it. Of course, we still need items for that, but people have been very generous with donations, and we appreciate that. We were able to deliver. Nancy delivered the gift cards to Oasis Center. I think $250 per person, which was lovely. Thank you, everybody, for doing that. We have the last day for the gifts for Aiden's foster family that he is connected with. So we have that as well. Saturday is our Christmas Eve service. So we'll be here at 5 o'clock. We will have a cookie exchange afterwards. Won't be long, but just a time to gather and connect with people. In time to go home and be ready for Santa Claus to come and all that kind of stuff. And dinner, because, it's Polish time and it's pierogi time at my house. So my kids are very excited about that. Any other announcements out there? Anything we need to know? I'll take that as good news right now. So wonderful. So we'll extinguish our chalice. I invite you to join me in reciting the prayer as I extinguish the chalice. The light of truth and meaning cannot be put out. We are keepers of this flame until we meet again. Our closing words today are adapted from Robert Mabry Doss. For all who see the divine, may the divine go with you. For all who embrace life, may life return your affection. For all who seek a right path, may a way be found, and the courage to take it step by step. Amen. Have a great, great week. Take it slow. Pace yourself. It's all good. It's all get done. And it's just about connection and time and our postlude from Joy. Beautiful song. Thank you. Have a blessed day, everybody.